What do you find the most special about season one?
Season one of the e-commerce hotline, what makes it special to me is that I had an idea. I'd enjoyed being a guest on podcasts for years. And then I went to a studio called A Shared Universe in Bellworks. They're based here in Monmouth County. It's a famous movie podcast. It's started by some people associated like Kevin Smith and that whole line, like the Kevin Smith wing of media. And basically I had this experience where my friends and I, one colleague at the time, we shot a podcast there, and I loved the format where it was like the producer was behind the desk, then we were over here as the guest, and it really illustrated to me how to make a podcast studio. And for some reason, instead of just renting studio time, which would have been a lot cheaper, there was a freestyle session, which we can pull up on the B-roll, where I said, I'm gonna make a studio like this one. TSA, I'm like the agent. You thought it was flagrant. I'm gonna make a podcast studio just like this one in my basement. Thanks for the inspiration. And then lo and behold, renovated this room, and a month later we had a podcast studio. And so what I like about season one is it got my ass moving, because I've been passionate about media since I was a kid, since grade school really. In middle school, we were making things, videos, websites, video games, all of that. And then in high school, I actually majored at Brooklyn Technical High School. Shout out to the Tech Knights and the engineers out there. But basically, we majored in media, and towards senior year we got to start making videos. And I also enjoyed interviewing or doing man on the street. I've always been good at talking to random people. I used to do some stuff like that at street fairs, working at the Halloween store where I would dress up and interact with people. I used to dress up as Spider-Man, had some adventures with this weird creature. So I just kind of had this affinity, knowing that I could be a natural on camera or doing these things. And so anyhow, we started so I said, hey, I've been on podcasts, I could do a podcast. So I found it rewarding to kind of give birth to an idea I've been sitting on for a long time, which was the e-commerce hotline, which was originally supposed to be like an actual call-in number, 888-499-ECOM. And I said this would be great as a podcast, and eventually make people want to call in, with the goal to do a live show, which we're finally going to bring together in season two. Season two is going to feature a lot more live shows, and we're hopefully people call in the number, the 888 number. And so I would just say season one, what I enjoyed was building the look. I started with a very rudimentary backdrop, and then I evolved it. I kind of just had an idea and executed it. So it kind of taught me that if I could visualize it, I could achieve it, anything, no matter the scale. And so that's what I enjoyed the most about season one. And also when you put yourself out there and ask people for things, you shall receive, right? So also it forced me to put myself out there.
What did you learn about entrepreneurship or people's career?
So while recording limited set of episodes I've done for the e-commerce hotline so far, I learned a little bit. I would say entrepreneurship is more like my own personal journey. I would say I didn't exclusively focus on interviewing entrepreneurs or people that I would say are just focused on that. I would say some of my guests are, because they are all people that have started businesses or serial entrepreneurs. But I would say there's those of us like myself who have just been exclusively committed to it for a long time. And so I would just say those who are really self-funded and not getting investment or don't have these connections, I would say I didn't really interview people that I would call people that really just bootstrapped everything, even though some people are. I'm not exclusively saying that. I know actually I met e-commerce business founders like Logan. I met people like Alex Len, who started a whole partnerships hub and community. And I met Kaylin Jordan, individual entrepreneur, Henry Johnson, individual entrepreneur, Saps is a individual entrepreneur with a venture background. So I would say it was a lot of people who are business minded. So I would say when I think about careers, there was guests like Adina. She was someone who came from a family background in real estate, and I did some research on her, but she's completely self-made in the sense that she started in a certain segment of partnerships in the agency world and then transferred to be in partnerships in the tech world. On that interview specifically, that was probably my favorite episode that I did, because we really got to the heart of some of those stories where she was talking about how colleagues influenced in her companies and what it takes to get a mentor, or on her MBA journey. So even though she had a good career, she was still leveling up, going to school, getting a master's in business, because she had higher ambitions. So I would say some of us, this maybe applies to me, is we let the situations we're in dictate our career trajectory because of the priorities of the companies we work for. So what I learned is that if you want to truly build a career of your own making, you need to have that entrepreneurial spirit, even if you're in a job. Like Adina, I would say that's what really stood out to me, because you can clearly see she has a different trajectory beyond this long term, but now she's at Shopify. And so just in the 2 years since I interviewed her, her star has risen even more. She did everything she could do at Okendo. Now she's in the partner scene at Shopify, again, doing what she did best, managing agency partners and engaging her constituents. So I would say that's the one thing I could say, is that you have to be invested in your own career more than any anyone else. Because if we go to what Kate said about women who have, who want to have children but also have a job that is really demanding and they feel like they're forced to choose, she brought up the fact that you should make your employer or choose your employer based on how they approach that question. If you want to work in the most supportive environment, and if they're not giving it to you, you have to ask for it, because no one's going to just open the door, especially when working women have it hard because they're being forced to choose between motherhood and having a career, but really it's all one thing. And so I think you need to look at yourself as a total person and really about what you want out of life and make your career to that. And I know it's scary because we're risk averse because we need to have a job to pay the bills. And so entrepreneurship is all about risk taking. So I'm taking a lot of risks, but I'm also enjoying a lot of the rewards of those risks. And so if you find a way to blend those two things in your working career, I think you can ultimately have a really rewarding and successful life and have what you want out of life. And so that's just what I learned on recording 12 episodes. And also, another one, Gab, she founded a successful startup when she was like 19 and sold it and has all this rise and fall story. And then she went into the working world and then she came back and now she's doing whole other things. She got out of partnerships again, or she's still doing partnerships actually, and she started her own coaching business. And so again, look at the life she wants to live. She's not just settling for having a job. She has a blueprint for where she wants to be. And so I just find it really inspirational. So for what it does for me personally is I get inspired by these stories. Anytime I'm recording, I'm on a high for the next day after. Anytime I'm editing, I remind myself, oh yeah, this is why I'm doing it. This is why I need to bring this message to the world. So that's what it taught me about entrepreneurship and careers. And the only regret I have about season 1 is not getting professional graphics, not getting more support, because I just made a logo one day, which is my headshot, and that's still how it stands right now. And then the old logo was like 2 guys wearing COVID masks answering phone calls.
What you're looking forward to season 2?
In season 2, I'm looking forward to consistency, putting out content regularly, engaging people in person, recording some content in our coming soon public, not public knowledge, but a space that we're building for doing this, and doing more of that kind of Q&A style stuff. Really the live show, I want to pay homage to all the live talk shows of the past, or that vibe. So it doesn't have to be so off the wall, but really just looking forward to just consistency, I would say.
What watchers can expect from season 2 from your guests and your talks?
You gotta stay tuned to find out. The story is not written, but I will say you're gonna see more on location content. So we're gonna go behind the scenes at more businesses that have e-commerce. We're gonna really hear the founder stories or learn about the nuts and bolts behind it, what they're willing to share. We're going to also have hopefully more on location correspondence in other places where I can't be sending in content. We're gonna have more of the great stuff you love like that. Season 2 of the e-commerce hotline is gonna be me bringing out the vision more, because I think we're all tired of the same kind of podcast. There's so many people doing that. There's so many people with so many more followers than I'll ever have doing that. And so why do you turn into something about a subject that can be as boring to the general public as e-commerce? And so for me, it's like more about telling stories, about knowing that you as a person back home can be doing what this person is doing if you so choose to apply yourself in the way they did. So it's helping educate people on that and really exposing them to possibilities outside of what they're doing right now. And in general, just want to bring a more interesting format, kind of show my personality more improv, more humor, putting people on the spot more, but in a nice way, bringing out reactions. I would say getting the dynamic between host and guest down tighter. In season 1, I was a lot more hesitant to interrupt people or trying to work on that, because also when you're in digital, there's latency. And so sometimes the latency can lead to a misunderstanding. As you know from early day Google Meet and Zoom, when it's a little delayed, you can interrupt someone without intending to. I don't think I had that problem, but that's the type of stuff I want to make it more engaging.